For almost 2 weeks after moving into my new home, I had been looking out my bedroom window before bed every night, glancing across the canal to the house on the other side. Every time, the house was pitch black, completely lifeless. I started to assume it was either abandoned or a vacation home rarely used by its owners. The yard was overgrown, the dock looked weathered and unstable, and the paint on the siding had begun to peel from years of neglect. It was the kind of house that gave you a strange feeling, an unnatural quietness, like it was frozen in time. Then one night, everything changed. That very same day, my brother had come over to help me launch my boat into the water. We spent the afternoon getting it secured to my dock, drinking a couple of beers and talking about what kinds of fish I could catch in the canal. I didn't think much about the house across the way, at least not until later that night when I went to shut my blinds. A light was on. Not only that, but in the dim glow of what appeared to be a single lamp, I could make out the shadowy silhouette of a man standing in what seemed to be the living room, right near the back door. His posture was rigid, his arms hanging stiffly at his sides. From my vantage point, he appeared to be wearing sweatpants and a long-sleeved shirt, and his hair, what little I could see of it, looked to be greying. He wasn't moving. He wasn't pacing or even shifting his weight. He was just standing there. At first I tried to rationalize it. Maybe it was the owner of the house, finally coming to check on the property. Or maybe I'd simply never caught them at home before. But something felt off. The way he stood there unmoving, like he wasn't just staring out into the yard, but directly at me. It sent an involuntary chill down my spine. I shut my blinds and tried to put it out of my mind. The next evening, after getting home from work, I stepped out into my backyard to plant some grass seed. The canal was calm, reflecting the evening sky in murky, shimmering patches. And then, out of habit, I looked across to the house. He was there again, standing in the same spot, the same stiff posture, watching me. This time, I was sure of it. We made direct eye contact for what felt like an eternity before I looked away. I considered waving, but something inside me told me not to. Instead, I ignored him and went about my business, though my heart was pounding the entire time. I told myself I was being paranoid. Maybe he was just an old man who enjoyed looking outside at the water. But deep down, I knew better. That night, I checked again from my window before bed. The light was on. He was there. But now, he was closer. Not at the back door, but near one of the side windows, as if trying to get a better look at my house. At me. I turned off my lamp and stepped back from the window, my breath catching in my throat. I watched for several minutes, barely breathing, waiting to see if he would move. He didn't. I shut my blinds, my skin crawling. From then on, I kept them closed every night. A week passed, and I did my best to put it out of my mind. I even had some friends over to take the boat out. We spent the day on the water, and for once, I allowed myself to relax. There was no sign of the man, no eerie staring contest from across the canal. I started to think maybe I'd imagined the whole thing, or that maybe he had finally left. Then that night, something happened that I couldn't ignore. I was just beginning to drift off to sleep when I heard it. Footsteps. Slow, deliberate footsteps on my back deck. My blood turned to ice. I sat up in bed, straining to listen. The steps continued, moving from one side of the deck to the other. My mind raced. Was it him? Could he have crossed the canal somehow? I bolted upright, my heart hammering against my ribs. Someone had thrown something through the glass. A rock? A brick? I didn't know, and I wasn't about to go check unarmed. I scrambled out of bed, grabbing my phone and the biggest kitchen knife I owned, before creeping downstairs. Shattered glass littered the floor. The cold night air poured through the gaping hole where my window used to be. A single brick lay among the debris. My hands were shaking as I checked the corners of the room, half expecting to find someone hiding in the shadows. But the house was empty. I called 911, my voice barely steady as I explained what had happened. The dispatcher assured me officers were on their way. The light was off. The house was dark again. The police arrived and swept my property, but they found no one. I told them about the man in the house across the way, how he had been watching me, how he had to be the one who did this. They listened carefully, nodding along. But when they returned 20 minutes later, after knocking on his door, they had news that made my blood run cold. The house was empty. A neighbor confirmed it had been foreclosed months ago. No one had lived there since the previous owner had been evicted. I felt sick. If no one lived there, then who had I been seeing? The officers advised me to install security cameras and left the squad car parked outside my home for the night. The next morning, I woke up feeling restless. Against my better judgment, I walked over to the abandoned house. I tried the front door, locked, but the back door, I swung open effortlessly. I stepped inside, my heart pounding. The air was stale, thick with dust. The floors creaked beneath my weight. I took only 2 steps before I heard it. A noise upstairs. A slow, deliberate shifting of weight. I turned and ran. I didn't look back. That day, I got my window fixed and installed security cameras at the front and back of my house. I haven't seen the man since. I don't know if he's still there. I don't know who he was, and I don't know why he was watching me. But every night, as I lie in bed, I wonder if he's still watching. Somewhere, somehow, waiting for the next time I let my guard down.